Jai Shri Radhe Ji. Day 155, Varta 136, the story of Meha continued. Part 2. Meha bathed Sri Thakurji with water from Sri Yamunaji and completed the Seva from Mangala to Rajbhog. In this way, Sri Thakurji greatly graced Meha and his wife. It was not long after this that Meha's wife left her body. As she passed, she remembered the feet of Sri Gosaiji and attained entrance into the eternal Leela. Meha felt very sad. He wondered how he would manage to serve the Lord all by himself. Soon Meha's son reached the age of 10. Meha told him over and over again that he should be initiated as Sri Gosaiji's disciple and serve their Sri Thakurji. The son replied, "I will not become a disciple." Meha realized that he was not a divine soul and that he would not surrender to Sri Gosaiji. Meha served his Thakurji by himself. One day, 4 Vaishnavas set off from Mathura to go to see Sri Gosaiji in Gokul. The day was almost over, and so they decided to stay on the ghat in Mathura that night and set off again in the morning for Gokul. They crossed the Sri Yamunaji river and sat on the ghat. One of the 4 Vaishnavas piped up, "I have heard that there is one great Vaishnava disciple of Sri Gosaiji in Gopalpur. Let's go there and stay the night. We can hear of the Lord's pastimes from him." They all agreed, and the 4 of them set off. They arrived at Meha's house almost an hour after sunset. Meha had just offered Sri Thakurji his supper. Meha greeted the Vaishnavas most lovingly. He then received the nighttime offerings back as Mahaprasad and made the Vaishnavas very happy by letting them have the holy sight of his Sri Thakurji. These 4 Vaishnavas then thought, "It would be marvellous if we could respectfully bring this Sri Thakurji into our Seva." When Meha had completed the Seva and the Lord had settled down to take rest for the night, Meha invited the Vaishnavas to partake of prasad. "There are milk preparations and fried items too. Please eat as much as you please." The Vaishnavas said, "We partook of Mahaprasad just before setting off. However, we would like to partake of the milk preparations you have offered." Meha fed them with milk, sweets, cream and milk. He had quite a few buffaloes and cows, and so there was no shortage of milk. The 4 Vaishnavas enjoyed Meha's Sri Thakurji's Mahaprasad. After feeding them, Meha also ate, and then they began to discuss the Lord's pastimes. 3 of them were Brahmins and 1 was a Kshatriya. As they spoke amongst themselves, Meha felt that the Kshatriya's Vaishnava was a very sincere and nice person. Meha approached him, saying, "I'm going to die before too long. Please take my Sri Thakurji into your Seva." The Kshatriya Vaishnava replied, "What about your son? Will he not serve nicely?" Meha replied, "My son is not a devotee. He does not share my life with me. He is not initiated." The Kshatriya Vaishnava spoke, "Okay then." Then the 3 Brahmin Vaishnavas also offered to take Meha's Sri Thakurji into their Seva. Meha told them that it was very nice of them to offer, but that his Sri Thakurji was going to go with the Kshatriya Vaishnava. Meha felt so much grief in his heart, his eyes welled over. The next day, the Kshatriya Vaishnava cooked and then most lovingly brought Meha's Sri Thakurji into his Seva, accepting the responsibility of such Seva. He offered all his preparations to Meha's Sri Thakurji. The 3 Brahmins cooked separately, offered and partook of the Mahaprasad. Meha gave all the rest of the prasad to the cows. He was so distressed by the mere thought of his separation from his Lord that he could not even eat a single mouthful. The Kshatriya Vaishnava settled his Sri Thakurji down to his afternoon rest and then honoured the prasad. Thereafter the 4 of them left for Gokul, where they met with Sri Gosaiji and had the holy sight of Sri Navaneet Priyaji. Meha was struck with deep separation. At that very moment, he took anything out of his house that had any value and sold it. He gave the proceeds to a landlord of Gaurava caste in Gopalpur. He said to him, "I am on the point of death and my son is a rascal. Please go to Sri Gosaiji and give him all this wealth." The Gaurava Kshatriya immediately went to Sri Gosaiji and presented him with Meha's donations. He obtained a receipt and brought it back to Meha by the evening. Meha placed the note on his head out of respect, and then became mad with separation. "My life is useless without my Lord's Seva." He cried all night. In Gokul in the morning, many Vaishnavas came to see Sri Gosaiji. Chacha Harivamsji also came, but Sri Gosaiji would speak to no one. All the Vaishnavas began to wonder why Sri Gosaiji would not even speak to anyone. They approached Chacha Harivamsji and asked him to find out. Chacha Harivamsji asked Sri Gosaiji, "O Maharaj, why will you not speak to anyone today?" Sri Gosaiji replied, "Meha is a great Vaishnava. He is suffering intense separation and is very sad. I cannot tolerate his sadness. He is going to leave his body today at midday." Chachaji asked, "If you so order, I shall go to see him and then return here?" Sri Gosaiji told him to take some charanamrit with him. It was time for Sri Gosaiji to take his bath, and so Chachaji collected some of the water in which his feet had been washed. He took 10 or 20 Vaishnavas with him, and they went over to see Meha. When they arrived, it was still early morning. They found Meha lying on the floor in a mood of intense separation. He had lost all bodily awareness. When Chachaji pulled him up by the hands, he regained some sense of his body. Chachaji told him, "I have brought some charanamrit from Sri Gosaiji, so you should therefore give up all tension and worry. You will leave your body today at midday, so do not be sad. When you are so sad, Sri Gosaiji is also suffering. He cannot bear your grief." Hearing this, Meha got up and imbibed the charanamrit. He prostrated as if before Sri Gosaiji and said, "Oh Chachaji, now I feel secure. For a Vaishnava such as yourself has come here and I have got to see them. Sri Gosaiji remembered me. I am so fallen and sinful, but the Lord is so merciful." He spoke in this way until midday. Meha sang one song in the Saranga Rag. Pada Rag Saranga. Life is wasted for that soul who does not take shelter in Shivatanaji. Life after life is passed in lamentation for one who has not tasted the nectar of Seva to the Lord. This age of Kali is like a lion with its fangs bared, and the root of atrocious sins. The poet Meha now sings, "For the one who does not remember my Lord, the upholder of the Sri Giriraj mountain, tolerating the 3 types of pain, is like the sharp blade of a spear." While singing this, Meha left his body and entered the eternal Leela. Chachaji and the other Vaishnavas then got together and performed Meha's last rites. Meha's son then heard that his father had died. He came to Meha's house. He realized that Meha's Sri Thakurji was not there. In fact, there was nothing left in the house. He went to the Vaishnavas and asked them where all the stuff from his father's house had gone. Chachaji replied, "We only arrived here today. You will have to ask the people in the village." Meha's son then went to the village and said, "Meha is dead and there's nothing left in his house. It must have been the Vaishnavas who took everything." The Gaurav Kshatriya spoke up. Meha was a Vaishnava. He knew before the time that he was going to leave his body. He sold everything and gave me 20 rupees from the proceeds. The house is now empty. You can live in it or not, as you please. The son sat down and cried. Chachaji and the other Vaishnavas returned to Gokul and recounted the whole story to Sri Gosaiji, who was very pleased with Meha and praised him. Bhav Prakash. The moral of this story is that life without seva to the Lord is useless. One should spend all their time in the service of the divine beloveds. Thus concludes Varta 136, the story of Meha, the fisherman, and his wife, who were both recipients of Sri Gosaiji's great grace and accompanied Vaishnavas. There is no end to their tale. Thus concludes the reading of our Dosobhavan 252 Vaishnava biographies for today. Tomorrow we will continue with Varta 137, the story of Rishikesh Kshatriya who lived in Agra. So, Aaj ke Anand ki jai, Shri Gosaiji ki jai. Sab Vaishnavan ko Sadar sa Prem sa Denya, Jai Shri Krishna. Jai Jai Shri Radhe, Shri Prana Pyari Ju, Shri Vraja Kishori Ju. Ye Charana Kamalo mein. Jai Jai Shri Radhe. Koti Koti Pranam.